Where's my laptop got?
Stop.
I've got my charger with me. Don't worry. Hello and welcome back to the Cine Skinny. It's the film podcast from the Skinny magazine. It's a full house today in the small but perfectly formed EHFM studio at ground floor. We're having a great time. Anahe's absolutely creasing herself. Me, Anahe, fresh from moving house.
Yeah.
Ellie, fresh off the mean streets of Leith. Jamie.
Not very fresh.
Not very
I forgot to put on 200 today, I think. Sorry guys.
It's also like 20 degrees.
Yeah. Something which just went red on the mixing desk, but I think it's fine. So let's just move on.
Jesus.
So yeah, sorry for missing the last one. Various things befell the team. It was exactly like that episode of The Simpsons where Mr. Burns gets the full softball team of ringers and then calamities befall them all in sequential order. All I will say is that the criminals of Glasgow, accused persons of Glasgow, are very lucky that Jamie was only one of the substitutes and got to go away after the first half day.
Yeah, to be honest, I'd made up my mind when the guy came out. He looked shifty, so it's probably wise that I wasn't on the jury. I was like, send him down, whatever the evidence.
This is a sequel to 12 Angry Men. It's one angry man.
Yeah.
I was juror number, and I was substitute juror number 2. So it's like, it's like the shit version of that Clint Eastwood film where he just goes home.
The 13th.
I didn't kill anyone.
Yeah. The 13th in a 12-horse race. Love to see it. Right, okay. So
15 in a Scottish court.
God damn it, he's right.
Wait, what?
Yeah, 15 in a Scottish court.
Wait, that's crazy. Why?
Partly, so then you always have an odd number on one side or another.
Yeah. No wonder
But
they're
don't
always...
juries don't have to be, they have to be unanimous because that was the whole plot of 12 Angry Men.
but then the whole thing about Scotland is we always have this third not proven scenario. So.
What?
The other thing about it
I've
is...
done so much crime in this country. I don't know how any of this works.
And you're about to find out. Okay, so on this week's pod, 2 hot films to go with this hot weather we've been having. Some discussion of Nights Out Gone Awry in film and some other bits. And then we'll get out of here. Never darken these doors again. No, I'm only kidding. I love EHFM. Great bunch of lads. Anyway, what's everyone been watching? It's been a while since we've done one of these, so we've probably got a lot to get through. So I'll come to Ellie first. What have you been watching recently, and can you tell us about it briefly for this bit of the podcast?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, obviously it's been a while since we recorded. I've been catching up on some films from last year that I didn't catch. Saw Longlegs. Loved that. Really interesting sort of rip-off of a David Fincher film, but if everybody was a psycho, like even the people investigating the crime are like weird robot people and like crazy hippie mothers, but also Nick Cage just going crazy with it. Loved it. Heretic was another one that's like a big, one guy is doing a really cool thing, you got to check it out, Hugh Grant being a nut job. But one thing that I did like about Heretic is that it's kind of part of this emerging subgenre of horror films that I noticed with Barbarian, which came out a couple of years ago, the one with Bill Skarsgård, where it's like, wouldn't it be fucked up if you went to a house and there was tunnels? Like, people just digging tunnels in their house for some reason is really, really creepy and something really fucked up about it.
It's because of mole people.
It is because of mole people.
It's because of our society's inherent distrust of the mole people. Ellie, continue.
But something a little bit less recent that I watched was, I watched my first Michael Mann film. I watched Manhunter, which was the first film adapted from one of the Hannibal Lecter novels with Brian Cox as Hannibal Lecter. And he does it in a really interesting way, because obviously, like, Mads Mikkelsen sort of does Hannibal Lecter in this kind of, like, dead-eyed, sort of absent-minded way, where he's sort of slightly distracted, like, he's occupied by, like, a hunger, a desire that you can't tell from his big, opulent lifestyle. And then, obviously, Anthony Hopkins just did it as, like, a little freaky animal that's like trapped in a cage, very, very still, softly spoken with big wide eyes, whereas Brian Cox just plays it incredibly normal. He plays it as though there is nothing wrong with Hannibal Lecter. There's no kind of like secret kind of double identity with him. He's just a congenial, like, very polite English professor with nothing to hide, but in a way that is sort of really because obviously Hannibal Lecter is always a side character, so his scenes are very few, but they feed really well into the film's sort of like wider tone of just this kind of like something being wrong. And yeah, I don't know, just a really impressive film. Very vivid use of soundtrack and very vivid use of colour. And I liked that, most sort of 80s films about police investigators are slightly propaganda-ish, because the sort of like, you need to have the sort of like fist pump, feel-good 80s ending, whereas like Manhunter was quite different, quite seedy and quite morally grey, with, is it Dennis Farina, who's the sort of like police chief in it. He's cousin Avi from Snatch.
Yeah.
He's great in it, but also like as a kind of character who doesn't get it. So I don't know, really impressed with that, and loads of stuff I've been watching.
Isn't cannibalism amazing? Sorry, that's Brian Cox as Hannibal Lecter.
I saw Manhunter way after seeing Silence of the Lambs, and what surprised me about it is it's actually not much about Hannibal Lecter at all. It's like basically about another killer, and it's like it spends a lot more time with that killer and like actually getting to know him a bit more. It's actually humanizes him quite a bit.
I think that future film adaptations really identified. I think Hopkins as well, like really like defined the role in a way that kind of made Hannibal Lecter way more fascinating than anything he could actually appear in. So I think that I'm not that familiar with the books, but I think that the books are usually about like a completely different
the film is much more Silence of the Lambs is much more weighted towards Starling and Lecter, and Buffalo Bill's a kind of side character who's not really in it at all, whereas this one's like flipped.
But it feels satisfying. It's like very drawn out, and it's like it becomes a very kind of like personal attack between these two characters. So by this big fucking like 15-minute long finale where Inagada Davida plays, you're really in for it. Like you're really invested, and it's really drawn out and really satisfying.
Wonderful stuff. Jamie, what have you got for me?
I've been watching all this stuff as well. I've been really enjoying the Glasgow Film Theatre's retrospectives recently. So they've been doing a Derek Jarman retrospective and a Chantal Akerman retrospective, kind of in tandem, really. So like you can do one of each a week. And yeah, it's just really, I mean, I think the thing is these filmmakers are people I want to see on the big screen. You know, like Jarman, his films are so about, you know, the kind of look of the film. He's an artist, so like it's so much attention is paid to like the set designs and the costumes and like the mise en scène. So I want to see that on the biggest screen possible. And then Akerman, she's all about these kind of like long durational kind of sequences which require kind of full attention, and it's quite hard to do that at home. So like I've really enjoyed catching up on the ones they haven't shown. And I also like a retrospective where it doesn't just show the big films. You know, this showed like a whole mix of stuff. So I got to see The Captive, which is an underseen Akerman film. I got to see The Garden, which is a Jarman I'd never even heard of before. So yeah, it was really nice to see a big, expansive retrospective. And the screens were so busy. Like I saw Caravaggio on Sunday, and I reckon there must have been 300 people in the cinema. It was like
I really wanted to see that.
Yeah, it was like
I missed it.
Also the coolest crowd I've ever been. Like they actually. I thought, is this a premiere? What's going on? Like everybody's just dressed so well. It really brought out the art school kind of hipsters of Glasgow, and like I felt like an absolute slob, to be honest. So it made me want to dress better to go to the cinema.
Was Caravaggio part of the Queer Cinema Sundays thing?
It was screening as part of the Queer Cinema Sundays, but it's also part of a longer kind of Jarman retrospective. And actually, Je tu il elle, Akerman's first film, was also part of the Queer Cinema Sundays. So it's tied into like what the JFT's doing anyway, but that was also an amazing experience, her first film. And she's in it. Like I didn't, obviously the other, I think it's the only film of hers she stars in, but like she's in it and she's like so good, such a captivating presence. So like it was really good to see. And then she went on like made that film. It's very kind of rough around the edges, but then she goes on and makes Jean Dielman, which is so kind of controlled and perfect. So it's like interesting like how quickly, like a couple of years later, she went from being this kind of like rough and ready kind of punky filmmaker to making this kind of masterpiece. So yeah, it was just really good to see these films on the big screen.
And nice to be in a room with lots of people as well.
Yes. Which is most of them were on Screen 1, which is like
it's the feeling I've got right now.
Yeah.
Not as well dressed as the crowd at
Hey!
But we are all sat in the dark and films are involved, so that's most of the way there. Anahit, what have you got for this bit?
What have I got? I watched Blue Velvet. Did we talk about that last time?
I don't think we did. I think it was maybe earmarked for the one that we ended up not doing.
Yes, yeah. I watched Blue Velvet in the cinema for the first time. I did really like it. I thought it was very sexy and horny in ways that made me feel quite bad about myself. I was like, this can't be good. Isabella Rossellini looks crazy in that film. She looks so good. Has anyone ever looked that good? I don't know. It was absolutely insane. I think I liked Mulholland Drive better. I feel like those are the two genders. You're either a Mulholland Drive girly or you're a Blue Velvet girly. And I think I like the kind of obscurity or like obliqueness of Mulholland Drive more, and this was a lot more of like a straightforward sort of crime narrative than I was expecting. But it is just so, I mean, he's just really fucking good, isn't he? Like the way that he kind of captures
David
images.
Lynch.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Takes on here.
yeah, controversial. Anna Heat's coming in pitching 100-mile-an-hour fastball.
Yeah,
What if
I'm
I told you
gonna
that
say
David
it.
Lynch was good?
I'm going to say it first. I think he was really, really good. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. Really glad I saw it in the cinema. The cameo, I think much like everyone at the moment is doing a bit of a retrospective.
So they've got this thing that's like David Lynch, and it's like they've paired each.
Inspirations.
Yeah, they've paired each of the David Lynch films that they've got over the course of the year with another film that is somehow related to it,
Yeah.
whether it's inspired by or an inspiration for that
Yeah.
film.
It's quite a cool idea, I think.
It's a really good idea. I think they did, which I didn't see, Eraserhead, and then the one for that week was Freaks, maybe,
yeah.
that like early film. So that was quite nice. And then this is all going to seem very unrepresentative. What I have mostly been doing is watching House. But I did, I have had like little bits of cinema in between. I did a guestie on the Little White Lies
Great
podcast. Hey, I shouted us out.
Yeah, Anna Heat did give
Not
us
by
a shout
name.
out.
That just says the other podcast I'm on.
No,
She
I
said the Skinny Skinny. She
I didn't mention you by name, Jamie, which is maybe what you're upset about. I did mention us by name.
after I sent you off with specific instructions
Yeah,
to
I
mention
probably
the
wouldn't have done
podcast
it
by
if you
name.
hadn't told me to.
And I was impressed you got it in first as well. I thought it was going to be like a what are you working on kind of plug at the end, but straight away you're like, I'm
straight
from the
away.
Skinny Skinny.
Yeah, in case people tune out. So I did watch 3 quite intense films for that. I paused House in order to do that. So I watched Julie Keeps Quiet, which is out at the moment, which is good. I watched April, which is very, very good. This Georgian film about an OBGYN in the sort of like rural areas of Georgia who performs not even illegal abortions. This is what, when I was like looking up the film, abortion is legal in Georgia up to 12 weeks, but there's just something about like the culture of these rural places that makes it like hard and frowned upon, and it then means that a lot of it is done in this back alleyway. And it's about this woman that performs them, and it's actually like such a fascinating film, like both politically and also like what it does with narrative and how it kind of refuses like ideas of like teleology and plot. And yeah, I thought that was really good. And then we also watched 4 months, 3 weeks and 2 days, which is another abortion film from 2007, I want to say, so like as part of their film club. So it was a very bleak triple bill. I cannot recommend doing that. Like just back to back, those 3 films was very, very intense. But they were very, very good, and that was nice. And then I went back to House.
Fair play. I mean, you've got to retreat to your islands of safety after
you really
that
do.
triple bill.
Yes.
I don't have much to add other than I watched Slow West for the first time.
Oh, cool.
It's very good. In anticipation of Tornado, the John McClane one. So it's very good. Yeah, kind of revisionist western. Cody Smith McPhee. Is that his name?
Yeah,
he plays all
yeah,
the Scottish.
yeah.
Face you would never tire of slapping. And very much like the act is that as well. Like a very, how do I put this, punchable young man. But yeah, looks amazing, really good, very nice like tone and sense to it. And probably not a bad place to then jump into talking about Sinners, because they're both about visions of an America past. See, didn't even plan that. That's straight off the top. Even on trying circumstances, I'm quite good at podcasts. Nah, I'm only kidding. I'm doing my best. Right, okay, should we talk about Sinners?
I feel all of us that was the cue for all of us to be like, yeah, you are. And no one said anything.
No, I'm thinking when Jamie edits this, hard cut there. Or actually funnier if he does it here. Right, so Sinners, I think probably the hot film of the moment in more ways than one. We'll get onto that shortly. So, in 1930s Mississippi, identical twins Smoke and Stack are back after working with Al Capone in Chicago, and they have a plan to open a juke joint nightclub. They've got the venue. They have recruited a group of musicians, including a preacher's son with an incredible voice, but on opening night, they run into some problems, shall we say. So this is Ryan Coogler's new one. Michael B. Jordan is Smoke and Stack. We'll get onto that in a minute.
Can I just say, there's a really good Letterboxd review of this that's like, finally, we have Michael A. Jordan. Gets his moment. Which I think is so good. Carry on.
Sometimes it's the simple ones that are the best. Haley Steinfeld, Wunmi Musako, Miles Caton, Delroy Lindo, who's very, very good, Saul Williams. When it first started, I was like, is that Saul Williams? And it turns out it was. And various other people in a quite kind of like bombastic, big budget and multifaceted film, Anahit. But what did you think? I think you thought it was good, if I recall correctly from the conversation we had before this podcast.
Yeah, to be clear, I am currently on annual leave. I should not be here, but I am here because I love this film so much.
There were people moving all of the stuff from storage into Anahit's house about an hour and a half ago. And now she's on the pod. That's how true of a believer she is.
In Sinners. I fucking love this film so much. I was so taken by surprise by it as well. Because I hadn't heard that much about it. I think maybe I just haven't been to the cinema in a little while. So I hadn't really seen any trailers, hadn't really heard anything. And it is just such a like, oh my God, sexy, delicious, pulpy, just like a dream film. So yeah, you have these two twin brothers and they return to their hometown of Mississippi after having been fucking around in Chicago, running around with Al Capone. They've pissed loads of people off. And they want to open up this juke joint. And they're like, so a lot of the film, actually, pretty much the first half of it is this kind of setup of this. And it's a very, very interesting film on kind of, like, obviously it's set in the Jim Crow South. You have, like, every now and then the glimpse of, like, a KKK hood, or you have, like, these, like, conversations between these two brothers who are, like, really not here to fuck around. And then these, like, white people. And it just is, like, ominous sense of dread constantly. And then it all goes a bit awry. I think it's quite obvious, like, people know how it goes. It's not a spoiler to say.
I think people know what genre.
It basically turns in, what?
I think if people have got this far and
They probably know.
They probably know. But see, if you don't know, it'll be in the description. Just skip to the next bit.
Feel free. But basically, I'm not even going to give details, but basically it turns into this kind of like vampiric thing, like these vampires turn up and it like all starts to revolve around that. I think this is one of the most like exhilarating films I have seen on the idea of like music and creativity in a really, really long time. So the two brothers collect their cousin, who's played by newcomer Miles Caton, who hasn't been in anything before and is fucking insane. So good. And he's like this kind of wannabe blues musician, but is the son of a preacher who thinks like blues music is like belongs to the devil. And there is this really interesting history that I don't know that much about, but I do know exists, that like, yeah, there is this relationship between blues music and like the occult essentially. And I think there were like mythologies around various blues musicians. They like sold their soul to the devil for like the gift of music. And so it's kind of entwining all of these things. And there are these scenes that I don't want to spoil, but especially this one scene in the juke joint where I think they call it like the summoning spirit scene. And it says such interesting and like fucking ecstatic things about how music can like be like a form of expression, the way that you can kind of like seize creative control, the way that it's an expression of people who have been like oppressed, how that kind of continues like in through the past and into the future. It's just insane. And the way that Ryan Coogler does it is so, God, it was just like fucking mesmerizing. So that there was this one rendition of Rocky Road to Dublin, and I have a very particular relationship to that song because it is my earliest memory is that song playing in the car when I was like really, really little. So I already find it quite a like haunting song in a way. But yeah, there's this like incredible rendition of it. Everyone is so good. Haley Steinfeld is fucking amazing in it. Michael B. Jordan is amazing. Michael A. Jordan is amazing. I think that joke is so good. Like everyone is so fucking good. It's like this incredible ensemble cast with so much chemistry and like movement between them. It's so sexy. I think all films that say very powerful things about like race and about music and creativity should have someone spitting into someone else's mouth. I really believe this. That is so my jam. So yeah, it's just like really horny in the way that you would want a vampire film to be, and that it's like, oh my God, just so much about like desire and what you want from this life and taking it, but then what are the boundaries of that? I just thought it was so good. I thought it was so good. That's all I have to say.
It's very good, isn't it, Jeremy?
It is, yeah, no, I completely agree. It's like, you know,
I was waiting for him to just be like,
no. It's quite rare to get a mainstream film that is it's not rare. Like, there's so many mainstream films that are thrill rides and they are like so entertaining, but they don't have anything in their head. And this film is both like super fun to watch, like actually nail biting on the edges of the seat stuff, but actually it's so deeply intelligent. You know, it's like thinking through a lot of things, and it's using that vampire. We talked about it a little bit in the podcast before. Like, vampires are always like analogies in films. You always metaphors. This film uses it in such an interesting way, really complex and thorny. Like, for example, the main vampire is Irish. That is actually a really interesting choice. Like, I think I've seen people discussing it online. You know, like, obviously a less interesting film would have made the vampires all white supremacists or something, or like the kind of good old boys down the road who wear the pointy hats, or just make it Eastern European and make it like bland. But this is such an interesting choice that really works its way through the film. And what I like is Coogler never over-explains anything. Like it's a film where you can debate forever what the actual other vampires. Even some people could argue even the vampires are good people. Like they aren't the baddies in the film, really. Like, the vampires are as much oppressed as everyone else. So like it's a really kind of interesting way to set up a film. But then I also love a film that builds. Like, I feel like so many horror films just want to get to the grisly stuff straight away, and this film, it just takes its time. You know, I love a vampire film. I also love a get the band together film. Like, the first hour of this film is just these two lads going around town picking up. So, you know, they find the musicians they need. They find the bouncer. They find this drunk old guy who's like a great harmonica player and like piano player. He finds his ex-girlfriend who's like a great cook, and she's going to make them jambalaya and stuff. Like, probably not jambalaya. What do they make? Anyway, catfish. I can't remember. What do you eat in Mississippi?
What do they? Yeah.
I can't actually remember.
She makes catfish.
Okay.
Anyway, good
There's
fish.
like multiple shots of fish frying.
But anyway, you know, they find the bouncer. You know, it's like it takes a long time. And the good thing about that is you get to care about these characters. So when you know that something bad is going to happen, you know, you don't want MD to walk out of the joint and get attacked. You know, so like that's a kind of great. That's something that just so many films don't do. They don't take the time to introduce the characters and give you time to breathe for them. And as much as a vampire film, actually the film this reminded me most of actually is Lovers Rocks. You know, like the Steve McQueen film.
Yes.
You know, like from a few years ago, it was part of the Small Axe series, which is in the way that it's about black people finding a space and using the dance floor as a kind of way of being, you know, forgetting their troubles. You know, like essentially, this space, we've got our music, we've got our sexuality, our bodies, and that's what it's about. Like a big chunk of the film is essentially about these two brothers trying to create a kind of paradise on Earth for them in this Jim Crow era South. And like they almost do, like this is like why the film is so tragic, because actually they do create like this wonderful night. And like I think one character says in the film, you know, before all this happened, this was the best night of my life. And it's just like so much of the film spends time showing people having the time of their life, just listening to the amazing music. And then, like you say, how they use music. Again, I don't want to spoil it, but it's one of the best sequences I think I've ever seen in cinema. It's like, honestly, my jaw was on the floor. And it's like just the technical bravado of it, just to throw in this quite surreal moment in a film that's not particularly surreal. It's a fantasy film, but it's not like a surrealist film. But they throw in this kind of arty section, which was just so imaginative, like nothing I've ever seen before. I can't think of any film that it's copying from. It
was so bold. Like, it felt like coming up in a way. Like, when you started to see it unfolding, you were just like, oh my God. Like, it was, I couldn't believe oh my God. Yeah, it was so crazy.
Yeah. And then you throw into that just like the most amazing actors. You know, what's better than one Michael B. Jordan? You know, like somebody needs to put 3 Michael B. Jordans in the film and they'll be all cooking, you know? Just across the board, like the costumes, like Ruth Carter, who does the costumes, amazing like period details. I have one caveat, so I'll leave it towards then. But
Sure.
Throw some water on all this.
Like, I think you're right, Jamie. I think it's like great not only because it's a very brainy and well-informed film, but I also agree with the pacing being incredible. I kind of forgot I was there to see a supernatural film, because like again, that first half is so kind of richly built that it's just a really compelling kind of historical drama where you get to see all of the different ways in which like people are kind of pressing against the grain in this very restrictive historical backdrop. Because you've got Smoke and Stack, these gangsters, and they describe their kind of criminal enterprise is their attempt at getting freedom, them wanting to feel free. And then obviously you have like Sammy, the preacher boy, whose sort of music is a means of like, you know, connecting him to the past, but also to like, you know, future generations of musicians, and kind of like a broad statement about music in that way. But then also all the side characters. There's Chinese Americans, like the characters like Grace and Bo Chow, who kind of give a bit of historicity to the fact that, I don't know a lot about this, but that like Chinese Americans sort of like widely in the South set up grocery stores because it was a way in which they could survive, because whites wouldn't trade with blacks. So they, you know, had a market there for them. So again, it's all these people kind of like in one of the most sort of evil political landscapes of all time, desperately like looking for a way out. And then, like you say, yeah, like vampires kind of come in and the audience are asked to question what that means for the story. And, you know, maybe you will land on a question. There's clearly, like, I see people online sort of some saying like, oh, isn't it a bit weird that the vampires are so kind of like appealing? And then some being like, no. But at the same time, like, at the end of the day, it just still allows it to be an absolute like rip-roaring, really compelling film. It has a really interesting structure where like a lot of stuff gets thrown up in the air. That beautiful sequence where like, yeah, you sort of see, and you just can't kind of believe what you're seeing, and you think something like that's going to come back, but it never does. The film always keeps you on its toes. There are these little plot devices that get laid down. There's like, you know, we see some indigenous Native Americans, but they don't necessarily come back in the way that you may expect them to. So it's sort of like a lot thrown in the air and not necessarily all of it's tied together. And the film ends not with like one big third act, but sort of with 3 or 4 like micro finales. But in these little epilogues are some of the film's like most cathartic and most exciting scenes. So like not only like a really, really clever film, and not only a really, really sexy film, but just like an incredibly fun film that really gets like a wow reaction out of you. And sitting now, going over the shots in my head, I was like, oh yeah, I felt fucking hyped during that moment. Like, it is genuinely such a hell yeah film.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is truly a wild bit of business. It's reminiscent of a lot of things. Like, it's like a much, much better From Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh yeah.
It's got like elements of something like an like, if people haven't seen it, if anyone who's listened to that whole conversation but still hasn't seen this film, fair play. Like, but yeah, like, it's got elements of things like Oh Brother Where Art Thou, in the way that like music is like really central to it, but the music is almost like the music will be like kind of light set pieces rather than just like in the background. The acting is all really good. I thought it reminded, like, I was thinking about Mickey 17 when I was watching this, another film that had like a dual kind of like lead performance. And actually, Michael B. Jordan just does I think he's got more to work with than Robert Pattinson did. I think he just does a better job because like there's more differentiation between the two characters, and there is more of a sense that like there is a reason for these two people to be on screen at the same time. There's a reason that Smoke and Stack are like both here, whereas there's a bit of like Mickey 17 where you're like, it's very technically impressive that they've done this, but actually it doesn't really make much difference to like how I feel about the story that there's two Robert Pattinsons.
Also, I mean, feel free, I haven't fact checked this, so feel free to edit that out if it's wrong, but I was talking to someone and they mentioned that originally maybe Jonathan Majors was cast as one of the brothers, and it was just going to be two different, like it was going to be Michael B. Jordan and Jonathan Majors, and then obviously everything happened and they just decided to like double him up. I didn't look it up to see if that is true, so it might be wrong, but I actually think it is such a compelling choice to have them be the same and to have these like little moments of like costuming, like tell them apart, but then you start to see like their different personalities like emerge in the way that one is more cautious and one is more brash. And I
one
think
is sexier.
One is sexier. Yeah. One is definitely sexier. And then you kind of see, I think especially the way that the film ends up going, that sort of like almost gothic idea of the double like works so well, as opposed to having like these two separate actors. So yeah, I'm really glad they did it that way.
I was just going to say technically as well, like so often you can kind of see the seams usually they'll just, it's clearly a split screen and like the characters don't interact, but there's scenes where like they're passing cigarettes between each other, they're touching each other. Like I don't quite know how they did it. Like I don't know if they're using sort of CGI or something, but it's just, I'd love to know how they actually create a lot of those scenes, because they do interact a lot. It's not like there's a moment where like they split off and like they go off on their separate journeys, but you think, oh, that's just to help. They're not going to come back together, but they do, and then they interact again. So just technically amazing.
Apparently, no evidence confirms the filmmakers ever cast or considered Jonathan Majors for a role in the film.
But it is like online.
It's one of these sort of like what's that? What's the Scorsese thing about the Scorsese film that isn't real, but everyone's convinced themselves that it is. Yes, so one of those. It's a bit kind of Mandela effect, where it's like, why do people keep thinking this? It's like because people keep saying it.
Yeah, someone definitely said it to me very confidently. I can't remember who it was, so I can't blame them.
Well, if Sinners has so many messages in it, but one of them, you shouldn't trust people who come at you with confidence. That's what I'm going to say. And also, you should inherently mistrust Irish folk music.
If I was going to say, I did have reservations. The one thing that really frustrated me, and I love the film pretty much, apart from how it deals with the ending, not the kind of ending, but the actual big climax of the vampires attacking. I felt like it was just so rushed. And I feel like it was quite unsatisfying because, like I say, they spend so much time building up these characters and getting to know these characters that for you don't really get a chance to
Oh my god, Jamie.
Well, is that a spoiler?
Yes! What do you think a spoiler is?
Okay. I'll cut that out. For some character so quickly. What is that? It's a horror film.
What are you saying?
I'm not allowed to say some dying horror.
Oh my god, this is what an episode we're having.
It was a bit rushed at the end.
There we go.
Expertly done. Right, scores out.
Stick around for the post-credit scenes.
Yeah. And they're like actually part of the narrative in a way that most post-credit, like loads of people before I'd seen it were like, haha, Ryan Coogler out of the MCU, can't let the post-credit scene go. But they're actually really good. They're not just like weird advertising, which I really loved.
This is a proper film that's good. Mm-hmm. That's the way to think about it. It's not like a shit film. It's a proper film that's good. But how good is it? Let's mark it out of 5 and then aggregate those scores together to come up with our score for how good it is. Ellie, how good is it out of 5?
Like 4.5 stars.
Nice. Jamie?
I'm going to say 4.
4.5.
I'm also going to say 4. So we'll round it up to 4.5. It's a 4.5 star banger. Good job, Ryan. Good job, Michaels. Well done, everybody. Right, second film, Motel Destino. So after an attempted gangland hit goes wrong, Geraldo hides out at the Motel Destino. It's a roadside motel where everybody's humping all the time. And those humpies and humpers include the motel's owner, Elias, and his wife, Diana. As Geraldo gets more and more entwined with the motel and the couple, things escalate. Chaos, as it often tends to do in these situations, ensues. This is the new film from Brazilian director Karim Aïnouz, which I believe it played at Glasgow Film Festival.
It did. Yes. That's where I saw it.
Excellent. Jamie saw it at Glasgow Film Festival. And it stars Iago Xavier, Natalie Rocha, and Fabio Assunção. It's a horny one, isn't it, Jamie? And it's also very neon, and there's a surprising amount of farmyard animals in it. That's a lead-in. You know what? That's a nice like underarm pass to you there. Enjoy that
it's
one.
It's actually a nice double bill, I think, with Sinners because they're both kind of very much films that are kind of sexy, sweaty. The atmosphere is like a big part of it. You know, like the plot is quite thin. If I'm being honest about this one, it's very much like a kind of like noir template. So it's like riffing on Double Indemnity and like Postman Almost Rings Twice and things like that. And it's got this kind of love triangle. I love films with love triangles, and it's a really kind of toxic, unstable one. So like basically this young kid starts hiding out in this hotel or this motel simply because I think the managers fancy him, like both of them. Like straight away, like he's this kind of object of desire for the camera, but also for these two people who are like after him in certain ways. Now,
what also happens, there is a kind of prelude to the main plot. So he is just out on a night out and he meets this woman and they go to the Motel Destino for fucking, right?
Yes.
And then it turns out that she's like robbed him, basically.
She basically robs him, yeah.
She robs him.
But it's the worst possible time.
Yeah, because he sleeps in for the attempted gangland hit that I discussed earlier.
Yes.
And then after that goes bad, that's when he decides to leg it, and he decides the best place to leg it to is back to the scene of the non-crime. So he goes back to the Destino aware that he is being trailed by people. And it's like, well, the last place they'd expect to find me is the Motel Destino. And then that's when it all bemes a bit,
Exactly. It's a great place
downy.
to hide out because essentially people just come here to fuck. Nobody really spends any time here. It's just like, you're in and out. And he's just like...
Wait, Jamie, give me that one again.
Yes.
You're in and out.
Wait, did that work?
Yeah. I mean, Jamie doesn't have headphones. Do it again.
You're in and out.
There we go.
I have to imagine what... That'll be fun during the edits. Yeah, what sells this film is the atmosphere. Just it looks great. It sounds great. It sounds great. It's got this over the soundtrack is essentially just people humping constantly. That's like part of the joke of the film. You're walking around these corridors, all you can just hear is people having sex.
It's people trying to have dramatic conversations while there is the loud sound of humping from throughout this kind of one long sort of teal corridor, I believe.
Yes,
a lot of teal, a lot of pink, a lot of purple.
The colours are amazing. It's also spends a lot of time basically the labour of working in a sex hotel. a lot of the time is just the young lad being said, okay, go and clean those sheets, those cummy sheets, and put these and change that sex toy out and switch off the porn. And so it's you get the idea of what working in a sex motel would be like. Which is
not exactly on falling, but it does have some realist edges to it.
Yeah, it's probably one of the best looking films I've seen in a long time. It's shot by is it Helene Louvart, who we spoke about her films quite a lot recently. She shot La Chimera, she shot Disco Boy, she shoots all of Eliza Hitton's films. Really great cinematographer, and she's this master of using grainy textures in 16mm, which is perfect medium for this kind of film, which is sweaty and grotty and lurid, and you can just feel the heat and the sweat coming off the screen. And I think she does what she does with the 16mm is very she captures the kind of seedy neon kind of heat of the place really well. It's just a very sensual film, very sexy, very physical. Not just in terms of the sex, there is a lot of sex on screen, a lot of nudity and stuff like that, but actually there's a lot of kind of dance sequences, really good dancing. There's a middle section where they just dance by a pool, the three of them, and I could watch that all day. So I just found it a really kind of interesting film. It's got symbolism in it. It's I wouldn't say if you want a really tight plot, go for it, because the plot is quite loose. The whole gangsters disappear for most of the film. It's just a MacGuffin, really, which is I like most of noirs. Most noirs, the plots aren't really that important. It is all about the atmosphere and how the light goes through the windows and things like that. So this is what you get for this film.
Yeah, there has to be an explanation for why this guy is hiding out in the cum hotel.
Yeah.
What does that think?
Again, I'm really setting everybody up.
I loved it. I thought I had a great time. Yeah, very stylish, very sort of seedy, very interesting. The funny thing is, right, that arguably going out on a massive bender and having a one night stand the night before your very, very crucially important ride or die gangland hit happens the next morning is not a very responsible thing to do.
But it is baller.
That's the thing. We're never really brought to question Geraldo's competency or whatever, because what it does show us is that the sex he has is really good. The film takes care to show that this is good fucking that we're seeing, and it's kind of worth it. Weirdly, for all of the weird sort of madness that sex causes, that desire causes throughout the film, it does do a good job of showing you why people get driven fucking crazy by it. The characters are so interesting. I think that even though kind of Geraldo is our character that we're sticking with, I really like Diana's character. Her kind of arc seemed the most interesting to me, but it's really the relationship between Geraldo and Elias that I thought the film had the most kind of, I don't know, that it's sort of weirdest energy and its best energy came from. There's this sort of psychosexual battle happening between them where, as you say, it just starts out with quite frosty dialogues while you just sort of hear people orgasming in the background. But then as time goes on, they kind of you get the sense that they're trying to work out each other's sexualities and what they like, maybe just in a way to weaponize it against each other, but at the same time that involves kind of putting your own limitations for homoeroticism out there, which is kind of vulnerable, so you can't really screw with each other's head without screwing, etc. But yeah, other than the deadliest game of gay chicken that you've ever seen, it's a really fun sort of really elastic tone. You have these sort of I don't know, nightmare flashback sequences where he sort of a big montage of the terrible stuff he's seen up until this point flashes all at once, and then we cut really hard to this really awkward pool party that they're having in their pants, or and then by the end it's this sort of huge epic melodrama that is like taking them away from the motel and like out into the wilds, and you've got the world's worst polycule like battling for desire and power in this very primal way. And yeah, I don't know, there's something somewhat, I think, just in that cinematography there, in that kind of like larger than life styling, there's something quite mythical about it, which I think ties quite in well to it. It's Destino.
There's lovely like kind of biblical allusions and kind of animal
I don't want to give away too much, but like the one thing is that we see early on in the film that there's this field that they go out to with these huge wind turbines in the background, and the wind turbines, it's like a field of wind turbines, and as you can see, they all have little red dots that flash. And then that same field, way later on in the film, at night, all you see is the flashing red lights in the sky, but there's so many of them, and there's something so kind of like alien about it. Like there's something just so, and like, no weather, and it's just like pitch black darkness with these red lights. Something so sinister about this, like, I don't know, like big gallery of like floating lights that's just watching them sort their Freudian shit out.
I also loved my favourite character was probably the evil twink who lives in the night manager.
You missed yourself with this one, Annie.
I'm watching it. I am sold.
He's very much a side character, but I enjoyed every like moment he was on, because he was just like up to no good. He was like, what's he doing at night? And that
every film needs an evil twink. That's why I only gave Sinners 4.5 stars. If it had an evil twink, it would have.
Ryan Coogler, you're on notice. You're on the most unexpected form of notice. It's a good fun one. I think that's the thing about it. It's like it's very kind of like horny and sweaty and kind of weird and interesting, but it's just a fun bit of like thriller cinema.
Yeah, and it's a kind of hangout movie. Like, it's actually, you just spend a lot of time hanging with these people. They're either having sex, or they're chatting about sex, or they're like cleaning up after somebody who's had sex. That's all they do for the most of the film, to be honest. And I really enjoy just spending time with them.
I enjoy watching that.
I did. Like, I actually thought I just watched they could work it out, because like really they have a lot of sexual energy, these three. Like if there wasn't for the murder and the and the plots against each other,
if it wasn't for that goddamn evil twink, everything would have been fine.
Exactly.
Spoilers in the preceding sentence for Motel Destino. Okay, so a good one, another good one. Yeah. 2 good ones this week, but how good, Jamie? Out of 5?
Yeah, I think it's a 4 as well. Like, watch it in a double bill with Sinners, I would say.
Nice.
I would say 4.
Nice. I would say 3, but that probably makes it a 4. So I've been outvoted, and I can live with that. So yeah. So Motel Destino is out this Friday, I believe. Or maybe next Friday, actually.
I'm just looking at the listings at the Cameo.
It is on. So it's on at the GFT definitely from the 9th of May. So it might actually be the 9th that it comes out. So yeah, it'll be in your local art house cinema. Check it out. It's good fun. If that description sounded fun to you. Okay, and finally for this week, in honour of Sinners' nightclub that it lost loads of money and lots of people might have, according to Jamie Dunn, died, but goddammit, it was the best nightclub we ever saw. And Motel Destino's tale of lots of people fucking and then things eventually getting a bit gnarly. We wanted to talk a little bit about films about big nights out that go awry in one way or another. I think we've got a bit of a mixed bag on this one from what I heard when I was feverishly trying to set up all the equipment and getting really stressed because I couldn't find a USB cable. It's very hot today. I don't deal with the heat very well. Annie, what have you got for us in the realm of films about best laid plans of the partygoer?
Well, I remembered that we were doing this section maybe 2 minutes before we started recording, and I do feel...
Just to interject, does that still count as remembering? If we were having a conversation about it and you were like, oh yeah, no, I haven't done anything.
Yeah, because to remember, sometimes you need a reminder in order to remember. That doesn't mean that you didn't remember.
Well played. Carry on.
But we can keep talking about this if you want.
No, I think this bit of the conversation's over.
So I feel quite embarrassed because the only example I can think of, but it did immediately come to mind, is we've just talked about 2 very, very sexy films, and this is the kind of level of sexless that any Michael Cera film is. God bless. But I immediately thought of Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, which I think is a very charming film, part of that kind of run of like the noughties, American indie, like, yeah, Michael Cera kind of post-Juno film. But it's one of my favourite ones of that lot. It's really, really lovely. So it's based on, I think, a book by, I shouldn't have started this because I can't remember their names. I think David Leviathan and Rachel something. They also wrote Dash and Lily. And I think the book is each of them took like one of the characters and they do like a chapter by chapter like voice. Whereas the film is a little bit more cohesive but has that same sense of you have these two people. One is Nick. He's been dumped by his girlfriend. He's in a band, as all men in the noughties were. She is the daughter of a very famous like music producer, but is like, you know, awkward and shy, and is played by Kat Denning and is so beautiful, like so beautiful. And they both want to go and see this very famous like underground band is meant to be playing in New York. And so they separately go and then they like keep converging. He has this yellow car. It's a taxi that everyone thinks is a taxi and keeps trying to get in. And they just like go on all of these like various shenanigans around New York while they try to find where this band is like secretly playing. I can't remember what the band is called. It's something bunny. And they have to keep like finding the bunny and like looking around for it. And it's just... I remember it as just being like really charming. Like one of those it did a similar thing that Booksmart ended up doing several years later, where it kind of frames this idea of like a night out, and especially that kind of like adolescence, early adulthood night out, as this kind of Odyssey like structure where you just keep getting like waylaid by like different things, but instead of like a cyclops and like existential dread, it's I think Andy Samberg doing something crazy, you know, which is better. And it's just like really, really delightful. Has really, really good music in the way that, again, those noughties films just really is like very much a time capsule. But you have like Vampire Weekend on the soundtrack and all that kind of thing. And yeah, it's just like really delightful. And it's like one of those that I like that and Booksmart, I think of a lot with that sense of like something just starting to careen out of control and then the bonds that you form. And that idea of a night out as well, which is something I feel very deeply about them. That the best ones are always the ones where it's unexpected, and also the things on the edges of the night are what made it good. So it's not that like you went and you saw that band, or you saw that DJ, or you just like, you know, got really drunk or whatever it is that you think a night out is. It's that you kissed that random person and you want to kiss for a while, or you had like this conversation in the smoking area, or you were like stumbling home. And it's like a film about those parts of a night out, which are my favorite parts. And it's just really lovely. So yeah, but no, it's not very sexy. It's not Sinners level. Although there was like a big conversation actually about the set, because there is this one scene where they kind of have like sort of sex, like he like tries to make her, or he does make her come, and the fact the camera like moves away. And Kat Denning, I think, has spoken about that numerous times, about how like the idea of like being on a woman's face wasn't like allowed, like it was seen as really like taboo. But that it would have been different if it was like a guy or something like that, and that it was like this kind of friction point. I remember her talking about it. But other than that, it's not sexy at all. And that scene also is not that sexy. But it's also not meant to be. It's meant to be teenagers being silly, which is quite sweet.
Also, I can't think of many things less sexy than just be like a hard close-up on Michael Cera's. No shade to Michael Cera. I'm sure he's a lovely guy, but my God.
No, exactly.
Jamie.
The first film that came to mind actually was a similar film, like one of these kind of all-night Odyssey films. Like, so I was actually thinking initially of After Hours by Martin Scorsese, in which Griffin Dunne like gets picked up by like Rosanna Arquette. I think he's gonna have an amazing night of sex, and it just everything goes wrong, and he has like a night where he's like out on the streets of New York and everything's going wild. But I hadn't seen it in a while, so I didn't want to speak about it. So I actually thought I was going to mention Festen, because I thought like it's not like a night out, but it's like a party. It's like a birthday party. It's Thomas Vinterberg. It's essentially the most awkward film ever. Like cringe. It's like it's one of the part of the Dogma 95.
Was it the first Dogma one? It was the first main first like big Dogma one.
Yeah. So like Dogma, like for anything that doesn't know, it's like just it was a manifesto by, it was Lars von Trier and Vinterberg and maybe some other filmmakers, where they come up with like, you've got so many rules, so like you can't have like, all the music has to be diegetic, you have to use handheld cameras, you like certain rules that's just like to just differentiate from like mainstream cinema, and sort of make it I guess a more pure type of cinema. But my God, this is like such a tough watch, because essentially it's a guy who's having his birthday, and then some not to spoil anything, but some truths about his character come out, and it's like essentially the party has to go on, and Vinterberg just does such a good job of like putting together this chaos and all these characters like moving in and out together, with this handheld camera, which just makes everything on edge. And it's like just a very funny film, but also very dark, very Danish kind of like at life and family, and and it's a great kind of party, like a film that takes place in real time pretty much over a couple hours. But then I thought actually the best night out to go wrong film is probably Carrie. That was another one I was thinking of. So Carrie, like a horror film from the 70s by Brian De Palma, about a young girl who's bullied, and then the film builds up to a prom night where she's been invited to the prom, and basically she gets covered in pig blood by the bullies, and everything goes crazy. And again, it's like just such a cathartic movie of like, for anyone who's been bullied, you're on Carrie's side, you know, like she really that's a kind of great kind of, because it's also such a romantic kind of sweet prom. Like it's so nice, like the way it's filmed is like it's like beautiful, like the music is incredible, like there's like the camera work by De Palma is so romantic and so lush, and you think every time I watch it I think, oh my god, Carrie's having such a good time, and then it all goes wrong, and you know what, they deserve everything they get. I'm all for destroying bullies with your telekinetic powers.
I've never seen Carrie. Like how much of, because the impression I always had of it was that was like the inciting event at the start.
Oh no, that's very much the climax of the film.
Oh wow, okay, I never knew that. All right,
but great sequence, like just the kind of bravado of De Palma shooting that sequence as well. That's my favourite party gone wrong.
Nice. Ellie, what have you got for us?
I don't know why, but whenever I came up thinking of films about big nights gone awry, I always wound up thinking of like horrible dinner parties. I don't know what it is. Like I was like the sort of dinner party from hell subgenre that I've seen most recently. I think the popular one was The Menu, which was all right, but like I don't know what it is about dinner parties. I don't know if it's just sort of the formality and the kind of pretense, the kind of performativity that kind of helps writers bring the worst out in characters.
And I think one of the things about dinner parties as well is you can't leave. Like a club night is like a difficult one. I've seen it done, like films set at clubs or set at gigs, like a lot of the stuff in the OC where they go to the bait shack and they see all these kind of like 90s and 2000s bands like your Death Cabs and stuff. Inexplicably, Death Cab for Cutie are playing in this like 200 capacity like tiny little place by the beach, but like in a thing like that, people can just get up and be like, oh, you know what, I've had enough of this. Whereas like a dinner party, you're like, well, I need soup.
Well, the thing about the dinner party is that like obviously, like I don't know, if you're talking about something like The Menu or like a psychological horror or something like that set during a dinner party, then there's nothing literally keeping you from staying there. But the thing that usually keeps the characters staying there is the fact that like you don't get up, and like some sort of strange social contract about politeness and formality that kind of like keeps people trapped. So like a film that I was really interested in would be The Invitation by Karen Kusama, who directed Jennifer's Body, which is sort of about this big group of friends who, you know, they've had this sort of like traumatic incident that's led them all to split apart, and then years later they're reuniting for this dinner party. But our main character is struggling with PTSD and sort of seems to kind of like glom on to everything suspicious or out of place that happens. And, you know, the entire film just plays with your expectations as to whether or not there really is some evil cult pulling the strings and making everything happen the way that it's happening, or whether or not he's kind of deluded by his trauma, or kind of like the most sort of like unwilling possibility, which is just that what if your friends are kind of dickheads and your friends are not that good at being friends? But for me personally, out of this subgenre, there was a film called Coherence in 2013, which was directed by James Ward Birkitt, who is the creative consultant for the first 3 Pirates of the Caribbean films. And I hear he got very disillusioned with like big productions, so he hired like 8 improvisational actors to come to his house over 5 days and record this film about a dinner party where a comet travels incredibly close to Earth's orbit and therefore starts to warp reality. And it becomes very weird. And obviously, like I say, you know, you've got sort of, I don't know, middle-class, middle-aged people kind of coming in thinking that like they know what's going on, and it really attacks their kind of imperfections as character. Apparently the improvisational actors were given loose notes about their characters but told to just improvise dialogue, and because a lot of the sort of sci-fi weirdness is happening in the editing, they reported that they didn't even know what the film was about until they'd seen the finished product. But basically the idea is that once you leave the house, the only thing that you find out in the dark is a replica of the house with alternate versions of everyone inside, with slight differences. So it kind of becomes like this war with the other because we don't understand what it is. But at the same time, a war with the self. Like, Xander from Buffy is in it. He plays this guy who, like, knows that he's a recovering alcoholic. So the other version of him in the other version of the house will probably be freaking out and grabbing for the bottle. And that'll make him violent. Oh, I can imagine. The first thing I would do is come over and attack those guys. So they're kind of like preemptively trying to kind of work out what's happening. There's replicas of all the objects in their house. And apparently, the director made it like an airtight script where it seems really heady, really trippy. But if you do watch it very closely, everything's accounted for. Everybody's actions are like meticulously scripted out and like placed in very specific ways. So I don't know, just like a really, I don't know, like thorough film that kind of is mostly there to like bring out the worst in people. Maybe it's because I don't go to a lot of dinner parties. Maybe I'm not at that age or that kind of income bracket. But they seem weird and strange to me.
Well, the thing with dinner parties is if you throw a party, you're very much like, come around my house and have fun.
Yeah.
If you're throwing a dinner party, you're probably a type A person who's like, come around my house, use the right forks, use coasters, you know, it's a very kind of more uptight situation.
Nightmare. Yeah. You can see why there's so many horror films about them.
And on that resounding repudiation of the idea of having people around for dinner, the podcast is once again over. So...
Wait, did you not have one?
Nah.
Okay.
Like,
Fair enough.
I was trying to think of one, and the only thing that I could come up with was like episodes of the OC where they get into arguments at Modest Mouse gigs, and also that one bit from The Office outtakes where Steve Carell is like, look, TV pushes right into the wall.
Laughing.
Pay attention, Jim. Right into the wall.
That's also a psychological horror, by the way. That episode of The
That
Office.
episode is crazy.
my
The
God.
dinner. Also a dinner party.
Also a dinner party.
Yeah.
I'm never going to a dinner party in my life.
No, nor should
So
you.
if someone asks you out on a big drunken rampage, go. If they invite you round for soup, run.
Yeah. I mean, I live for the sesh, so...
Ellie,
A gaff is fine.
Ellie
Dinner party.
Robertson, sesh respecter. Right, and on that note, I think we're done. So, thank you, Annie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ellie.
Thank you.
Continue to respect the sesh. Jamie, thank you very much.
Cheers, Peter.
We will be back in 2 weeks' time. You can listen to all the other episodes and things like that on the various places that this podcast is, and do give it a nice review if you've liked it, because I believe that helps in some way, but I've never fully worked out or bothered to check how. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Thank you all, and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.